The vocation of marriage. First, let's consider what it is not. It's not just about the bride, because that could lead to Bridezilla. No, you can't have Bridezilla. And marriage is certainly not a game show. And we don't get married in a church just because a church makes for a nice venue. God said, "Love the wedding. Now invite me to the marriage." An interesting thing happens when a man and wife each draw closer to God. They discover they draw closer to each other. Marriage is a covenant. A covenant is like a contract, but way better. A contract is an exchange of services. Think of a homeowner contracting with a builder to construct a house, for example. But a covenant is a solemn agreement between human beings or between God and a human being involving mutual commitments or guarantees. Think of a covenant as an exchange of persons. A husband gives his whole being to his wife. His wife gives her whole being to her husband. And that includes body, soul, including fertility. The covenant of marriage must be free, total, faithful, and fruitful. They have to be freely given to each other. Total, meaning lifelong, body and soul, including one's fertility. Faithful, that exchange of persons to the exclusion of all others, you and you alone. And fruitful, open to life. Having children, that's co-creating with God. Or being fruitful in some other manner if children are not possible. When the bride and groom are baptized persons, Christ raises their covenant of marriage to the dignity of a sacrament of marriage. A sacrament is a visible sign of the invisible grace of God instituted by Christ. So a sacramental marriage is to reflect the love of God for his church, much like a mirror. Have you ever seen a happily married couple and thought you may have just seen a glimpse of God? It is said that the love between God the Father and God the Son was so profound that it resulted in God the Holy Spirit. Similarly, the profound love between a husband and a wife may result in a baby. So it's not a coincidence that the sacramental marriage, which is a reflection of the love of God for his church, morphs into the family, the domestic church. The sacrament of marriage is a sacrament of service. Recall, it's not about the party or a game show or bridezilla. Seriously? Marriage is a sacrament of service? Service to whom? Well, first of all, it's a sacrament of service to each other. We're speaking of the unitive purpose of marriage. A husband and wife bring each other to holiness. Their love is selfless as opposed to selfish. Instead of looking for what's in it for me, their love is expressed by wanting what is best for the other. And of course, this cannot include sin. Wanting the best for each other cannot involve blocking each other's fertility, for example, but rather bringing each other to holiness by coming to understand the beauty of our bodies and God's creative plan for us, as becomes very evident when couples practice natural family planning. Marriage is a sacrament of service to children as well, not only to co-create them with God, but to raise these eternal souls to be lovers of God as well. And marriage is a sacrament of service to society. The husband and wife are to do the will of God, to be that light of Christ in the world, to be that reflection of the love that God has for his bride, the church. The church teaches that we reserve sex for marriage because it's so good, not because it's bad. Consider fire. Restrained within a fireplace, it's beautiful, warm, and peaceful, exciting. Unrestrained, it's dangerous, harmful, deadly, yet exciting, but in a bad way. Outside marriage, the sexual act can be dangerous, harmful, deadly. There is a definite dis-ease involved with sex outside marriage, a troubling to the heart and soul. No matter how progressive we feel we may be, no matter how distracted we try to make ourselves, there is a profound sense deep in our hearts that this act ought to be reserved for marriage. This is because God wrote such loving things on our hearts. Sex outside marriage brings disease as well, sexually transmitted diseases, often associated with sex outside marriage and multiple partners. And sex outside marriage is deadly. Consider contraception and abortion. Sex is reserved for marriage because it is the covenantal or marriage embrace, that physical act that consummates the marriage or seals the deal, the exchange of persons. This is the giving of body and soul to each other. As such, every marital embrace thereafter is like a renewal of the wedding vows. This is beautiful, warm, peaceful, and exciting for the husband and wife. In summary, God Himself is the author of marriage. The vocation of marriage is written in the very nature of man and woman, as we come from the hand of God, the Creator. Man and woman were created for one another. It is not good that man should be alone. Woman is flesh of his flesh, his equal, his helpmate from God, and as such she represents God, from whom comes our help. Therefore, a man leaves his father and his mother and cleaves to his wife, and they become one flesh. This signifies an unbreakable union. Children are the supreme gift of marriage, the crowning glory. Christ Himself chose to be born and grow up in the bosom of the Holy Family of Joseph and Mary. The Church is nothing other than the family of God. So truly Catholic families become islands of Christian life in an unbelieving world. Are you called to the vocation of marriage? Pray to learn God's will for you. And remember to invite God not just to the wedding, but to the marriage.